Our conversation today are going to give you many such solutions, many such advancement which companies and our esteemed speakers has achieved over a period of time. For them coming here, being with me and presenting their solutions, their product, their technology, their services has taken a lot of hard work. So I request each one of you to welcome our speakers with a big round of applause. I am yet to join by 4 more speakers for this presentation, but without any delay, without any due, I wish to start the conversation with one of a very important speaker of today, coming from Indian Oil Total Private Limited. This venture has not only created an energy outfit, but it has also contributed significantly in the infrastructure. An economy which has to work with energy and infrastructure has to be an economy that brings the logistical cost down. And I'm glad to share that this year, in 2025, we have achieved one of those nearly impossible target which everyone said would be tough for India, country like India, to achieve. Historically, we are a 14.5% GDP spent on logistic. It was said that India would take another 3 years to bring it into single digit. But this year, in September, India has achieved its 7.8 and 8.9% logistical GDP spend, and this has happened only due to energy and infrastructure has worked together. Digitalization of our logistic, decarbonization of our logistic, and geospecialization of our logistic has managed to bring all of them and their components together. This brings us to the first presentation, and speaker of the day, to Mr. Dr. Pankaj Kumar Jain. Again, a round of applause for Dr. Pankaj Kumar Jain for giving the first presentation of the day. I would be joined by a couple of more speakers. Would request Dr. Jain to come on the dais and use this for your presentation slide. Over to you, Dr. Jain. Look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Abhijeet. Good morning, everyone. Respected session chairman, fellow colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to thank IEW organizers and my management for giving me this opportunity to stand before here. So today I will be presenting the advancing sustainable road infrastructure, so a global view and the Indian biobitumen research. So before that, I would like to set a contest on that because so many people will not be knowing that, because this is a upstream IEW seminar, so where bitumen comes into the downstream, and which is a very, very small, minuscule thing. But having said that, this is a very, very important thing, because we are paving the roads where the entire infrastructure is built. So India today is building highway at an unprecedented scale, but the true measure of progress is just how many kilometers we build, but it depends upon how wisely we build them. So Honorable Minister of Roads and Highways, Mr. Nitin Gadkari ji, has repeatedly reminded us that the future of Indian roads must be sustainable, self-reliant, and rooted in the innovation, not dependency. Biobitumen represent that shift in thinking where performance meets the purpose, and infrastructure growth aligns with national self-reliance and environmental responsibility. When Indian roads are built using Indian alternative, we reduce import, we strengthen the economy, and move closer to the sustainable infrastructure. This was the vision articulated by the ministers of road and transport. So India Highways Development Program is among the largest in the world, and bitumen continues to have a high degree of import dependence. This exposes the road sector for global prices volatility, supply disruption, and significant foreign exchange outflow. The Honorable Minister again, he has mentioned that again and again, and urge industries to use the alternative materials, promote circular economy, reduce carbon emission, and achieve import substitution. His vision is very, very clear. Infrastructure growth must be aligned with Atmanirbhar Bharat and environmental stewardships. Biobitumen actually directly respond to this call by partially replacing fossil fuel based bitumen with bio-derived renewable components. Biobitumen reduces the dependency on the imports petroleum product while maintaining functional performance required for the Indian highways. At ITPL, biobitumen research is guided by a practical objective, sustainability with engineering credibility, and our work focus on compatibility with the Indian climate conditions, scalability with existing road construction ecosystem. Is working. Is working. Beyond technical performances, biobitumen enables lower life cycle carbon footprint, its productive utilization of waste and agriculture feedstocks, and improved long-term supply security for the road sector. The research reflects a larger shift from viewing sustainability as an obligation to adopting it as a strategic advantage for India's infrastructure development. So with this context, I will now take you through the biobitumen research which has been carried out at the ITPL, covering material development, performance evaluation, and how is this innovation can be scaled to India's highway ambition while reducing the import dependency. So, coming to that, who we are. ITPL means we are Indian Oil Total Private Limited, which is a joint venture between 50-50 joint venture between Indian Oil and Total Energy France. So everyone must be knowing Indian Oil and Total Energy. So this joint venture is a very, very large joint venture where the two big companies have joined hand together, and it was formed almost 5 years back. So the basic aim is to delivering the high quality bitumen solution, advanced binders, and sustainable pavement materials, because it is backed by the global innovation of both the companies with the strength and national technical leadership. So what is our product portfolio? We are into the polymer modified bitumen, which is a premium grade for the expressway, national highways, freight corridors, and heavy duty pavements. Then crumb rubber modified bitumen, where circular economy comes into the picture, where from the tire waste, the rubber which we are using for the modifying the bitumen. So that is called CRMB. It is designed for improved flexibility and fatigue performances across India diverse temperatures. Then we have bitumen emulsion, because whatever road you are making with the bitumen material, whether it is a conventional or it is a modified, you will be requiring the emulsions which is required for tack coat and prime coat. So already I have covered the contest some part. So what are the relevances? So India is having a rapid infrastructure expansion, demand sustainable high performance binders are required. That is the D requirement. What are the national priorities? We want to be net zero by 2070, but as per our Prime Minister, we want to be by 2047. Circular economy, waste to value, and make in India. That is Atmanirbhar. Then there is a high dependence on imported bitumens. Almost 33 to 35% of the bitumen is being served by the imported bitumen. So that dependency also we have to break. Then biobitumen aligns with the India energy transition and green infrastructure goal. So what is biobitumen actually? So it is a binder produced partially or fully from the renewable solutions. What are the feedstocks? The lignin, agriculture residues, forestry waste, municipal waste, bio-oils, etc., etc. These are all the feedstock which is called biomass. It can replace or complement petroleum bitumen. it is having a potential for lower carbon footprint than the stronger resource security. So these are the some global landscape research and development which has been done worldwide. So in North America, the lignin plus polymer blend improvement has been done in aging resistance durability, because what is happening on the road, it is the oxidation is happening. So aging properties has to be at the best so that it can last for the at least 5 to 6 years. In Europe, PTO, that is pitch tall oil and lignin focused R&D has been done. So our Total Energies, who is our parent company, they are also working on the same. Pilot roads in Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, France has already been done. And what are the benefits? They provide a lower carbon footprints, softening point, especially when the RAP, that is the reclaimed asphalt pavement, is used, because that is the buzz now. Everyone has to use the RAP at least 20, 30 or maximum 40, 45% if we can use. In Asia, China and Japan, pyrolysis oil from the agriculture and forestry residue proven the compatibility with the polymer modified binders and partial substitution without loss of high temperature performances. So what are the key critical factors? Because everything is not rosy, so there are challenges and critical factors, etc. So first is the storage stability. When you are adding this biomass into the bitumen, the storage stability has to be within the limit, because otherwise it will get separated. Then feedstock consistency, optimized formulation plus polymer compatibility, because we are looking not only in bitumen, we are looking for the polymer modified bitumen, Crumpra modified bitumen should also be added, this biobitumen part. Then long-term monitoring and monitoring safety and emission parameters like polyacrylic hydrocarbon, flashpoint and volatile organic matters, VOC. So there is a need for harmonized test protocol and performance model. And recently, when Gadkari ji has released 8 licenses through CRRI, last month itself, they have asked now BIS to work on that, and we should be, I am the BIS member as well, so we will be working towards forming the specification for biobitumen and then PMB and CRMB. So India's emerging research ecosystem, so there are key contributors like IIT, Central Road Research Institute, which is a nodal agency, then IOCL R&D, our parent company, they are working lot of research on that. There are universities, there are industry partners, so all are working towards this direction. So they are working on lignin, which comes from paper pulp mills, then rice husk derivatives, then the cashew oil, and the agricultural waste pyrolysis oil. So there are 2 technology, one is the from the lignin and another is from the oil, so which is called the pyrolysis oil. Then what are the Indian research findings so far? Lignin enhanced binders, they provide the higher stiffness, better rutting and aging. Everyone must be knowing rutting. Rutting is the deformation on the road, and aging, just now I mentioned the oxidation on the road, so this has to be improved. So what bioels does, they improve the workability. Then they are feasible for partial substitution in the viscosity grade bitumen, which is coming from the refineries, and PG graded binders like performance grade binders, and integration into the PMB and CRMB, that is the space ITPL will be taking. And the need for broader feed scale validation. So this is the ITPL research work in biobitumen. So I will not go in details. This is the symmetric diagram, how we take the bitumen, then we cross-link, because we are working towards the PMB and CRMB. So these are some of the findings of PMB with lignin-based residue, where effect of lignin on rotational viscometer at 150 degree, then effect of lignin on rutting parameter, which is the very, very important parameter on the original binder, then effect of lignin evaluated by MSCR, multi-stress creep rutting test, then effect of lignin by GNR difference. So what are the findings basically? The binder remained workable up to 10%. So we could able to add up to 10%. If we are adding more, then separation, storage stability is an issue. So that we need to work upon. And it provides the better rutting resistance, elastic recovery, and higher bio content lowered the non-recoverable creep and variability that is an indicator of rutting. So it is, if it is lower, then rutting resistance will be better. So this is the ITPL research way forward, that is the feedstock and derivatives, advancing feedstock diversification, evaluating India relevant feedstock with the molasses-based bio-oil or agriculture residue or forestry bio-oils and pyrolysis factors. The aim is scalable, consistent, multi-regional biofeedstocks. What are the future direction? Plant level scale up of lignin for PMB and CRMB, field trials with government or research partners, building a holistic biobinder ecosystem across PMB emulsion and rejuvenators. So there is a need for R&D on bioemulsions, and benefits will be enhanced adhesion, lower energy sustainable road development. So there are some challenges as well. So feedstock variability, limited long-term performances data across climates, then non-Indian standard, as I just mentioned. So we have to frame the Indian standard, then storage stability, elasticity, additive compatibility across all bio-waste, and need for techno-economic analysis and the life cycle assessments. So what are the opportunities for India? Vast agriculture industrial biomass availability, so we can utilize that. Reduction in fossil dependency and forex outflow, which is the very, very important point on the point of view of government. Then a strong contribution to the circular economy and rural livelihoods. Alignment with the national missions, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Gati Shakti, and Net Zero 2047 or 70. Potential for India to lead globally in biobitumen technologies. So in conclusion, the biobitumen is a viable, escapable pathway for the sustainable roads. It is having a strong global evidences, and India is an early success. Significant environmental and economical benefit it will provide, and with coordinated policy and industry action, biobitumen can become a cornerstone of India green infrastructure transition. So I would like to acknowledge our research partner, industry collaborators, India Energy Week Organizing Committee, our management, government bodies and institutions. So thank you very much. So I think I am on time, exactly on time.
What a wonderful way to start this day. Dr. Jain is a distinguished expert in bitumen. He comes from IIT Roorkee with 27 years of experience. He has done 18 research papers. I am sure we could not do justice in 30 minutes with all knowledge that is required, but this brings me to a very important aspect of our infrastructure. Infrastructure, when it is good, it attracts speed. And in India, we are now the largest network of road, and each year, apart from being largest network of road, we are also a country with largest fatalities on road. Alone, a quality of road, potholes, and deformation of the bitumen, the upper surface, is responsible for 30% plus accidents and deaths. So what we have just seen is contributing on a very significant way to make sure that the roads on which we are traveling are safe, are properly intact in structure, and the quality of bitumen matters a lot to maintain it. With this, I think our Road Transport and Highway Minister yesterday has spoken and given V2V communication, that vehicle-to-vehicle communication. Vehicle will be able to talk to each other like fighter pilots, and that brings us more close to a very interactive, and coordinated approach of road. Let's move to another speaker. This person is coming from Indian Oil Corporation Limited. He also has a wonderful line of experience. He has expertise in cross-country pipeline. So I'm now moving from roads to pipeline. Mr. Mithun Kumar Saleem, Chief Operations Manager of Indian Oil Corporations. He brings lot of expertise of pipeline engineering, construction, commissioning, operations, and also contributing in major pipelines of southern India, including Chennai-Bangalore, ATF pipeline, and also the conveyor basin deck unit of Nirimanan and Chennai-Trichy-Madurai pipeline. So with no time, let's welcome Mr. Mithun Saleem.
Good morning, sir, and all dignitaries. Myself, Mithun Kumar Seelam. As topic suggests, this vehicle-to-grid enabled electric mobility. This is a new technology which is being very popularized in European countries as well as the United States, and it is being taken into India also. In 2023, Ministry of Power has an agreement with CEA, Central Electricity Authority, for devising the policy guidelines for implementing this technology in India. This is something like a next to battery swapping technology you people might be knowing. Okay. Next, I'll move to the next slide. Okay. This is a simple slide. Earlier, if you see in 1827, that time itself, electrical vehicles were coming to picture actually. This used to be operated by DC supply, and with rudimentary motor that time. All these motors that time was used to be run only with the DC supply. But if you see, after invention of Nikola Tesla's electrical motor in 1887, somewhere around, after that AC motors. Now whatever you are seeing on road, everything, most of the motors are AC operated, but these were there in 1800s actually, 1837, something like that, this was invented. But if you see by 1900s, 30% of the vehicles in Europe as well as US are electrical driven. Okay. But with the time, what happened? These used to operate on primary cells. Primary means single charge cells. Once you keep the battery, it will run for 110 kilometers approximately actually. And after that, you have to change it. And battery swapping technology was there that time also. Okay. But if you see in 1900 somewhere, mass production of internal combustion engines by Henry Ford has started. After that, this came into picture because this will come at a stretch for 100 kilometers. But there is a requirement, or there is a road infrastructure development also, where there is a requirement for longer kilometers requirement for a single charge actually. And moreover, by 1912, if you know, this electrical, this one also started, electrical starter, which also made the vehicles made easy. Now let us come to the topic. Now, if you see currently in India, 5 million vehicles are electrical vehicles, and in that 40% are primarily by two-wheelers and three-wheelers actually. Okay, and we are increasing solar capacity as well as wind capacity also. The prime intention is whatever you are developing electrical vehicles, this burden will come on electrical grid actually. Okay, it not only electrical capacity you have to increase, generation capacity, whatever your existing infrastructure capacity like transmission lines, whatever distribution networks, everything will be overloaded. For that also we have to think of. Okay. See, these and all, most of the slides were from India only. Like, recently Royal Enfield also introduced the electrical bike. And the second photograph is Cochin Water Metro, which is operating on electricity, as well as this is Electro. This is also electrical flights, or with minimum 2 to 4 seating capacity are being made. Rest all already available in our metros and all actually. Okay. Now our biggest problem is if you are increasing number of electrical vehicles on road, what is happening is the burden on the electrical distribution network, because already it is completely capped. If you see the distribution transformers, 90% is capped. If you are further putting electrical charging mechanism and all, it will be overburden. Now there is a requirement of vehicle to grid. What is vehicle to grid? Vehicle to grid is something when you are parking. It is a fleet vehicles, means for which time schedule is defined. If you are when you are keeping in place, what will happen? This charger will act as a bidirectional. Bidirectional means whatever charge you are using or you are charging the battery, same battery bank will be used as to generate the power or to give the power back to grid in case of peak load conditions. Peak load conditions means suppose evening time, what will happen along with industries, all domestic load will come into picture, all houses, ACs and other things, and these and all will increase the load. And if for that, if you are adding these vehicles also, it will be further burden. What will, instead of you are transferring somewhere from generating station, which is hundreds of kilometers away, by the time that power coming to your vehicle to charge your vehicle, there will be huge power losses. That losses can be avoided because this will be like a localized battery banks actually. So suppose next house something, there is a requirement of power from this vehicle, it will go. So for this, the policy guidelines are being defined. Complete the battery will not be drained actually. So, okay. And if you see, it can suppose you are keeping a battery in a parking place. Suppose from here you went to office and you put the vehicle in parking location. What will happen? And night time in peak load, the battery will be giving to the grid. And afternoon, suppose when solar capacity is maximum or renewable sources are there, these battery banks will be act as a virtual energy taker cycle. They'll store the battery or capacity like solar plants and all. No, whatever extra renewable energy source is coming, you need not keep batteries there. Localized, these batteries will be act as a energy takers. And there is a pilot project with Tata Meters ongoing in Delhi under CE actually. And IIT Roorkee also lined up for doing this project. Okay, this is a small pictorial diagram. If you see the renewable sources, it is going to vehicle. And in peak times, whatever the peaks you are seeing, but from evening to the 10 hours, wherever peak hours are there, this battery bank's power will go to the grid so that there is a distortion of your voltage waveform or everything. This can be reduced, and this power also can be mitigated. Power requirement also can be mitigated. These batteries will act as a virtual energy reserve actually. Okay, the fleet vehicles means not every vehicle will not come into this policy, like buses, office fleets, delivery vans, where the time schedule is defined. It went to office and it is available. Similarly, night time also you are parking. Night time it will deliver the power, and morning time whatever that renewable sources extra power and all, it will be absorbed into these batteries as a storage mechanism. Okay, this to increase overall battery capacity. And not only for renewable sources, even for wind power also. If any excess wind power is there or localized renewable sources are there, this can be stored in this battery bank. When you are increasing electrical vehicles for multiple times, the multiple burden will be there on the power generating stations. Instead of keeping, and parallelly we are moving towards renewable sources also, like solar and wind. This idealistically, this vehicle's burden should fall on these renewable sources so that net carbon generation will be reduced, and you want to parallelly you want to reduce the burden on battery banks also through this whatever already available in our hand. This technology, first time it was developed in Japan actually. It's called CHAdeMO, means charge, discharge and mobilize. And it was, there were DC chargers, like in India we are directly charging with AC supply, and the motors also AC motors, but there it is DC supply, and this CHAdeMO is something, it is a fast DC charging technique. But by 2012 and all, European countries come up with a combined charging system. Combined charging system means, it is, you can charge either with AC or DC, your battery bank. There are bidirectional converters. So, and these are equipped with communication protocol ISO 15118. What is this ISO means? This communication means there will not be any separate cable for communication. So it is something like a smart charging, how much your vehicle charged, how much power can be given to grid. Suppose yours is 100% charged, it will be 20 to 30% only, it will be taken out from a vehicle actually. Okay. So what will happen in the same wire where your AC DC is being charged or where your AC supply is going, in the same power cable itself, there is a, in the same cable itself, the communication also will go. It's like something like a skin effect you might have heard. It will be there in power transmission lines, where wave traps used to be there to separate communication signal from power supply, and it will be given. Earlier days, before laying this pilot cables and all, they used to put this wave traps. In the same power cable itself, the communication will go, and there it will be separated and it will be connected to your telephone or relay systems to trip in case of emergencies and exigencies actually. And there is advancement in this converter modules also, like silicon carbide or gallium nitride. This is being used in variable frequency drives as well. These are, they have a very wide band gap semiconductors, means they can switch at multiple rate faster. It may go up to in terms of megahertz actually, which is currently in need for this electrical vehicles. What this semiconductors will do, they will convert your AC supply to DC supply and it will store your battery bank. If you see this V2G technology, they have assessed the efficiency also. Whatever power you are keeping in or energy keeping in battery bank and removing and you are sending to grid, there is a efficiency of approximately 95%. These and all simulations done and the studies are going on actually. This basically it is a there are two things. One is your grid support to energy assets. These battery banks will be making like a grid support to energy assets, and it will support on three pillars: decarbonization, energy efficiency, and electrification. Without going for additional infrastructure, it is a method of using existing infrastructure to meet the energy demand actually. And these are flexible distributed energy storage. And each vehicle, you may be knowing, there are two things will be there in a vehicle. One is BMS, battery management system, which will take care of your protection aspects. And there is a EMS, newly implemented, newly upcoming in all this motors and all will be. EMS means energy management system, which will take care of your bidirectional converter and to transfer power to your vehicle and taking out from vehicle and sending to grid. And it is a smart charging technique actually. Okay, and if you see overallly in the world there are approximately 21 million vehicles by 2025 are electrical vehicles, and it is year by year it is increasing by 20% actually. This is one of the technique which is being used in European countries as well as other Eastern countries without keeping new hardware or new additional infrastructure. And in India also through CA the research already it's being done and pilot projects are being done currently. To implement very shortly within next 5 years actually. And one of the main advantage, as I already informed, large fleets mean this peak shaving, evening time, that whatever peak demand is there, it will be cut, grid stability will be ensured, and there is an integration for renewable sources. Okay, this is a small economics, whatever they have done on pilot study. AC charging, if you see, it is around 6 to 10 rupees per unit actually. Okay, and there is, if you see in home charging, it is 4 to 5 rupees per unit. And if you see AC charging, it is 3,500 per month. But if you see a bus or it's a fleet vehicle, it is around 200 kilowatts, okay, in a day. So if you see per month, if your energy consumption 250 kilowatt hours, so overall power consumption has been given here actually. So there are certain, in the policy, government is giving some rebates also, whoever is offering the vehicle to this V2G technology. So what will happen when they are storing and giving back to electrical grid, there is a rebate actually on the power, and they will be giving to the user, whoever offering the vehicle. There will be a scheme for that. This calculations are that, and approximately I have put to 1625. This is only for one day consumption. One day consumption, if you are, if your vehicle is giving back to the grid, that is around 1600. But if you see some 10 days or 11, accordingly it will be multiplied actually. So, and regarding, there is a small glitch. Suppose battery, when you are using charging and discharging, there are two studies. One study is supporting that it is very healthier for battery. The other study is saying that there will be there is a derating factor in the battery. For that, some 1 to 2 rupees per unit also has been considered. Okay. Main advantages are peak demand reduction in evening times and solar utilization. You need not put separate battery banks for solars wherever your solar panels are there. And feeder current, whatever you are bringing from hundreds of kilometers, that will be reduced by 10 to 15%. And if you see, when there is a reduction over overall load reduction, there will be voltage profile will be increased. Indirectly, your harmonics content, THD, the total harmonic distortion also will be reduced. Okay. And regulatory sandboxes are being prepared, and these are basically targeting EV fleets for which fixed time schedules are defined. And phased rollout of phase by phase, these are being taken into policy structure. Okay. It is basically to improve grid resilience, and it is not impractical. It is being, it will be implemented in India because nearby countries already implemented, and it will be a key enabler for Indian energy transition. Thank you very much. Actually.
Thank you, Mr. Mithun. You actually took us through what India's transition look like. Indian surface transport is expecting a significant shift from fossil fuel-based internal combustion engine to electric vehicle powered by renewable fuels, and despite of alerts on the slow adoption, which by 2030 the key segment may not be reaching originally to what it was projected, but still it is expected to penetrate 30% in private cars, 70% in commercial vehicle, 40% into buses, and 80% into two-wheelers. This at the conservative rate by 2030 would bring 60 million vehicles who do not use petrol and diesel. So the conversation that he has just presented is going to have a huge demand. And with this, I bring our next speaker in the conversation, Mr. Ankur Naresh, Principal Energy Practice, Accenture Energy. Ankur Naresh is also having a 12-year of experience into upstream mining, power generation and transmission. So let's hear what we have from Ankur. Ankur, please welcome on dais and big applause for Ankur. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair for the session, respected panel members, and dear audience. A very good morning to all of you. Right, excited to be over here at IEW and speaking in front. Right. My name is Ankur Naresh. I am a principal at Accenture India, especially looking in the energy practice over here. Right. Been in this domain for quite long, like 13 years. Started as an industry practitioner in NTPC, then moved into consulting, and have seen the entire gamut, I would say, of the energy value chain, right from mining and production to now electricity generation, transmission, distribution, and then fuel retail, right. And having worked with some of the most prestigious clients in India, especially in the public sector space, I would vouch for the fact that digital and analytics has emerged as a game changer for most of them, right? Like, it is probably a strategic advantage which helps you to reinvent yourself continuously, right? Maintain your dominance in the market and be relevant, right? Now, with this context, just moving to the topic that I wanted to present for today. That is how analytics is essentially a game changer for companies which are trying to expand into the EV charging station ecosystem in India, right? So if I just give a quick context, I know you people would be aware of what it is, but just from a summary level, basically the percentage of EV fleet that is increasing, right? And by 2035, we expect approximately 8.3% of the total fleet being from the EV ecosystem, right? And obviously that's powered by greater year-on-year sales, right? Approximately 30% is what it is expected to be as we move a decade ahead, right? Now, what's the impact it has on the EV charging ecosystem? Now, currently, if I look at the commercial establishment in India, it's around 29,000 stations, right? And that's expected to grow to almost 30 times to around 11 lakh EV station requirements, right? That's huge. That's I would say an exponential rise that we are kind of expecting. And obviously, there are a lot of factors which are contributing to it, including how the government is supporting, how, as a consumer, we are becoming more responsible, and also the cost economics kind of supporting that for us, right? But if you look at, some of the current statistics, right, just on the left side of it, so, obviously, the coverage or the penetration is low and it's supposed to increase over a time. But even with that, the utilization level of our current system remains very low. It's around 10 to 15%. And that also has significant variations. Like, there are pockets which have high utilizations, right? While those which are just lying idle and being what we say as a white elephant, right? As a company for me, more like an obligation, right? So it's a dichotomy, right? Like, on one side, we have such a high demand, right? The supply is low, but still the, patterns are kind of on the lower side, right? And, when we analyzed it, what we found that probably the way these stations are established, right, we do it more on a heuristic or an experience base rather than probably using data and analytics to say that, okay, this is a specific micro market pocket where I should install 100 kilowatt charger versus this is probably somewhere near to an office, and hence in my retail outlet I should install a 50 kilowatt charger because the dwell time for vehicle would be 4 hours, right? So that is typically not followed, right? So with that, we came to this problem statement that let's use data and analytics to help not just the oil marketing companies, but even the utility firms, right? When they're planning their EV charging network, right? That how best they should place their bets, right? Now, obviously, there are certain questions that come in designing of this. I'll illustrate that with some examples, right? Not the theory part of it. But the benefit, I would say, apart from optimum decision making, is also the fact that I'm able to run scenarios much faster. Maybe once in a quarter, once every half year, to say that maybe I need to do some strategic shifts in the way I am expanding my network, cannibalize some of my non-using assets, move it to some other place. So all that is possible if we are doing it through a system-based thing rather than, our standard SOP meets and annual operating plans, right? So that was the whole idea of, coming up with the solution. Now, when we talk about how do we use analytics to solve the problem, right, not boring you with the pedagogy, but simply put, we basically go for feature engineering to understand what are some of the key variables that would be at play for different situations, right? So for example, if I'm looking at a highway, right, and a 100 kilowatt kind of charger, there would be different parameters which would be of interest to me versus maybe an urban fast charging locality, right, versus an urban slow charging kind of a locality. So the feature engineering becomes very important, right? Next comes the attribution modeling, wherein for each of the features, through statistical methods, you arrive at what's the salience or weightage of it, right? So for example, traffic density, toll booth traffic for highways, etc. And I'll illustrate how that comes into play, right? Versus maybe, proximity to a transport hub, maybe the demographic pattern of an area which tells me how is going to be my uptick. So those are, the attribution modeling through statistical methods. What we also tried to introduce was the financial modeling of the site, right? So if we come up with maybe, like 5,000 locations within India, and we have to decide which 2,000 I should place my bet on, right? So a what-if analysis to say that, okay, the return on investment or the break-even point for each of the site would be this, given the demand that is estimated, and hence where I should kind of establish that. So that has also been overlaid over here. And then finally, we go into the specs finalization, that this year, these many chargers at these many locations, we can go about establishing and monitoring that, right? So that's just, from a step perspective, how we go about it. Just a double click into the type of data that goes into the model, right? Broadly, 6 odd categories. We are starting from broad level, policy and those macro indicators. Then also going into, what are my EV demand factors in terms of vehicle registration patterns, conversions, etc. We're also looking at the geospatial characteristics of that place in terms of, the road connectivity, proximity to my hubs and stuff like that. Demography and the commercial activity also plays a very important role, right? Which tells me that, what are my commercial spaces around, right? The demography of the people inhabiting and living in that place, the traffic patterns and stuff, right? And finally, the site features, right? Because that becomes my hard constraint in deciding what to augment and how to augment for. And, just in terms of a double click, yeah. So if I'm running this model, for example, for a city-based scenario versus a highway, let's just see how does it pan out, right? So if I look at a highway-based approach, so basically I'll have my retail outlets or point of interest, right? I have a PIN code for that, and I have information available for all my points of interest that I told before at this PIN code level, right? And then I'll have some more attributes of highway in terms of my chainage, my segmentation of the highway and stuff like that. And more importantly, the traffic patterns, that how distant my outlet is from some of my, the major cities, right? Or the smart cities, right? So all that will determine that, okay, which is probably the best location, right? That will come up with. And for each of those outlets, it will give a score, right? Telling that for this particular location, the success score for an EV station is 70 versus, 30 for the other one. And I'll show some results which kind of illustrates this. But in the city-based thing, right, because that's where, you have to be absolutely micro in your, location. So we went into a grid level data. So each of the grid is like a 1 by 1 kilometer grid. And there are agencies which give you, very detailed point of interest data at this grid level, right? And then depending upon where my outlet is and, basically the Euclidean distance of it from the various grid, I can arrive at what are my influencing factors for that RO in terms of the kind of traffic it will see, the conversion it will see, proximity to my nearby areas and stuffs like that, right? So using this, we basically give a score to the outlet. And then finally, we are looking at, some of my very contextualized aspects that, okay, 3 outlets have been given a similar score. I will look at the layout of the outlet, maybe the current service level or satisfaction level of customers over there, right? So that I can say that whichever is higher, probably I will install it over there, right? Or maybe if there are space constraints in an outlet that, the acreage is now small and I cannot establish another charging station, I'll probably prefer something else. So in a very structured way, we are arriving at scores, prioritizing that, and then deciding that what to augment and when to augment, right? That's the whole approach over here. So, obviously just some of the variables, right? It's probably a little more statistical, but that helps you to understand that why has some of these outlets been given a higher score, right? It just allows you to double click that and see those parameters as well. So essentially, if I'm a company, right, the output for me would be something like maybe urban sites for 100 kilowatt. It'll probably score my outlets and say that, there are probably 10 outlets which are lying in, say, Panji area with a score of 80 to 90. And I can actually double click that and see that, okay, for each of those outlets, what are my attributes? What were some of the factors that led into me choosing those outlets, right? And also double click into the projections for that outlet in terms of how the demand is estimated to be, what is my ROI on that, and why it is, more profitable to operate an EVCS over there as compared to some of the other locations, right? So this kind of allows you to go into that detail as well. Likewise, for the highways, there would be a different set of actors, right? So all that explainability, I think that is one of the most important factor in this AI model, that you need to have an explainability that why is something proposed to be, selected for a station, what are henceforth the demands and the uplift that are going to happen, and basis which, I can do a financial modeling and be assured with a good probability that it's a good bet for me, right? Rather than it becoming a white elephant. So I think, and what we also did is, so this approach obviously can be adopted by people, right? It's not like a patented thing. It's just logical problem solving is what I would call. So in a lot of our client discussions, right, we have come up with a bottom-up thing, put in the data, and then crunched it for them to run yearly scenarios. There are people who have even, institutionalized it as a solution, right? And every 6 months they run it with their team and, try to see what it happens. So we have also just created a sort of an asset for this, right? So that when we are having interactions with the clients, very easily, at least 70% of the work is done. And the later part of it can just be, discussed on a case-to-case basis, and we can run such kind of scenarios, right? So it goes through the same sequence, right? You have a data design aspect where you have data entry across policy, mobility, traffic, highway, power patterns, etc. Some of it we already have access to. Some can be tweaked depending upon, the company to company and the maybe access to better quality or, accuracy of the data, right? So this will cover things across, say, policy. We will have different state-wise policies. I mean, even now, I would say 20, 25 states tentatively are pioneers, right, in terms of the incentive SOPs, etc., that they're giving, right, for, setup of such stations, right? So, that data comes in, we can, categorically rate that. Likewise, there are data related to, my EV mobility. So what are my, say, district or pin code level projections of how is my, uptake going to be at an EV population level, right? What's the percentage fleet sales that are happening at different RTOs, the road transport, registering authorities and stuff. So using all that, you can go at a micro level, right, at a district or a pin code, and do, more nuanced and fine-tuned projections, right? Similarly, on the power front, right, like, the kind of infra that I'm establishing, what's the capex that it will typically take me to set that up, right? What's likely going to be the opex? Will the capex also involve setup of transformers and all because I need a bigger capacity to manage and stuff, right? So all that can be kind of modeled. Then we move into the scenario design. Like maybe the scenario is, let's assume Mumbai Delhi New Expressway, that's a scenario, right? I will put in my constraints that say within 100 kilometers I want charges, I cannot have it below that, right? And some of my capex and other factors, so that becomes a scenario, right? Likewise, it can probably be a scenario for say Panji local, right? For 2030. So that ways we can build in the scenario in the tool, model it, and accordingly, see what is the kind of output that it gives. Right? So basically, you will get retail outlet level, details, like I discussed a little before, that okay, at this particular outlet, this is, the characteristics, these are the projections for, how my uptakes, etc. are going to be. So it's all data backed, it's all logic driven, right? Analytics driven. And it's not something which is non-explainable, right? It's not a black box model, it's all explainable, and you can see through where it is coming at the results from, right? And most importantly, the financial modeling, because that is where we somehow keep to ignore it. Because we all know there are targets that we get as OMCs or utility companies that you have to push 10,000 chargers by this time, right? But probably if we pace it out, do it a little more proactively, it will be profitable to us, right? Rather than it becoming an obligation just for the sake of it. Right? And I mean, probably when, we can integrate it also with your downstream data, right? So that whatever you have set up, you have a visibility into how is that network or ecosystem operating, right? In terms of its utilization patterns, which are probably places where it did not click, right? So that, I can look at rationalization decisions and stuffs like that. So this basically then closes the loop, right? And also allows you to, get a grasp of how things are, and you can course correct and go back to the model and, kind of change it. So I think with this, I'll like to end the presentation. Thank you so much, and, look forward.
Very interesting and relevant one, particularly for me, who has a lot of things to learn from how highways can be connected and turned into electric highways. Next speaker who's going to come is again a person of very high relevance in today's context, is because few days back India has decided last week a spectrum that how vehicle will be able to communicate with vehicle to reduce fatal injuries and accidents. The next speaker who is going to come and who's going to talk about Advanced Driver Assistance System, ADAS. And in India, we are now in the process to make ADAS linked with VEDAS, Vehicle Data Electronic Analytics System. And once both of them, they work together, we will have information, depository information of violations and also over speeding, lane changing, in those areas where there is no camera, no policeman. So I'm very excited to listen to my next speaker, Mr. Sandeep R. Thawani, is a team lead petrochemical supply chain at ONGC Petro Additions Limited. And please put a warm welcome to Mr. Sandeep, and we look forward to your presentation.
Very warm good morning to all of you. So we will start with our presentation, as you are aware about the topic. This is our OPAL, what we are. We are a flagship petrochemical company of ONGC for its vision of oil and gas and beyond. And this plant was actually dedicated by Honorable Prime Minister in 2017. And it is with Advanced Central Lab Product Research Wing. We are also ISO ENMS FIRE certified company. We have a high-tech technology. It is a one of the largest dual fit crackers of South Asia. We are leaders in, within 8 years, we have established as a leader in petrochemical brand. We have pan-India presence of stock house where we transport our polymers, as well as we also directly ship this to our customers. And along with that, we have also hazardous chemicals, which we transport through tankers to the ports of Gujarat. And this overall, we supply to 50 countries, this entire material. So of all the mode of transport, the truck and tankers are the base. The first mile connectivity and last mile connectivity, even if it is between, there is a suppose a railways, but truck and tankers are the prime mode of transport for us. And truly it is make in India and made for world vision. This is what topics we will cover. We will discuss what is status of Indian commercial fleets, why we are talking about ADAS, what are ADAS classifications, there are 4 different kind of studies which we have done to conclude that why ADAS is important for commercial, where we are talking about 40 accident cases of truck and tankers which we had faced. We had also gone to the study of truck, tankers, buses, commercial vehicles, drivers' experience about their live, whatever accidents they have faced or they have seen. We have also seen that what kind of passive system controls like telematics and AI can play a role in it, and a global benchmarking of ADAS in commercial fleets, if any. What are the key findings and conclusions? So straightly we are moving away about this conditions. First of all, if you talk about commercial fleets of India, we represent the largest commercial market, third largest commercial market, where 70% of freight and 85% of passenger are actually dependent on road transportations. So this is very paramount that large chunk of India's logistic is dependent on roads. If you talk about government's focuses of PM Gati Shakti Yojana and national logistic policy, they again want to integrate all different kinds of modes of transport with data-driven technologies so that speedily we can move our goods with a safe. India is in verge of moving from point-to-point delivery to spoke and wheel model now. So for this, truck and tankers need to move very fast. But if they are moving fast, there also is a safety hazard for all of us, not for just them. So ADAS, we will establish how ADAS can play a role of active safety feature. If you talk about road accidents, we contribute to 11% of global share, one of the highest global share of road accidents. And if you talk about, these are the figures of MORTH and IIT Delhi Research Institute, wherein if you see that 85% of the accidents are actually because of human error. Now, if you see the breakup of this, in the third graph, if you see that 61% is for overspeeding and 24% is because of driver fatigue. Now, if you travel for a long distance, there will be driver fatigue and there are very less wayside amenities for drivers to take rest. So, this is where we will discuss why ADAS is important for vehicles. As well as this vehicle, why we have choose commercial fleets is that these are mostly a heavy mass vehicles. So by formula of force is equal to mass into acceleration, the force which vehicle if collides with any other vehicle, if it is mass is very high, it is very difficult to stop it and it is very high going to impact to the opponent person. So what are the present challenges within this sector is that fleets are aging. If approx 30% of these fleets, they are above 15 years. So next 5 years there will be demand of OEMs to manufacture it more. If you talk about driver shortages, everybody is aware in this logistics sector, there is a shortage of drivers. Approximately 25% is a shortage. Drivers don't have at present co-drivers or even cleaners with them because they cannot afford to share their own expenses with them. So they are driving alone. If you talk about highway crashes, around 55% of crashes are alone concentrated into only 5% of roads. So highways are at risk. If you talk about driver fatigue, around 400 to 500 kilometers per day they are traveling and they are not able to take rest. In our survey, we will see what is the level of rest with them. So at present, a lot of companies like IOCL, BPCL, Reliance, even Opal, they are very much dependent on telematics. We are remotely monitoring where our vehicle is, how fast it is driving. But yes, we are able to take action only after the accident. We cannot control it before. So here where ADAS will actually act before accident happens, within a milliseconds. So this is a part of a study. Already discussed that we will 4 different ways of studying this, whether this is important or not. And the primary focus is to understand what kind of accidents happen, what are the patterns, what is driver doing it, and why ADAS and which type of ADAS will help it. So basically, if you talk about ADAS, Society of Automotive Engineers, they have classified 5 levels of ADAS. Level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you talk, I will simply explain to somebody who is not much aware about it. Level 0 means they will only give an alert that accident or some hazard is there to the driver. But level 1 will have an one axial control, means you can control, it will automatically control your speed. If they think that there is a collision going to happen, it can decrease your speed. And level 2, it will have a double axial control, means if there is a collision going to happen, it can not only reduce the speed, but it can also turn your vehicle aside to prevent that collision, because it is not always possible to stop your vehicle immediately. So this study will focus and recommend how level 2 of ADAS can be important and should be there in our OEMs. If you talk about ADAS in commercial, this passenger vehicles in our cars where we are driving, level 1 is not picking up, but level 2 has picked up. From XUV 700, Mahindra had started this level 2, and now in almost every vehicle launching, whether Tata Sierra, they are giving a level 2 because of double axial control. So first 3 levels are actually ADAS and others are not actually ADAS, but they are automated driving. Means driving is been taken by the system, not by the driver. We don't recommend at this juncture to the India. So if you see how this ADAS will work, the architecture of ADAS will be having 4 layers. First is that there will be cameras, radars, ultrasonic, and if lidars, if there is higher level of ADAS. And these are the sensors where each sensor has a very different role. And once the multiple sensors, the fusion layer, the second layer, will reduce the noise and will try to filter out what is important for the system to judge. Suppose there are 3 radar and cameras, so it will take multiple inputs and process it, and further it give to a brain, decision layer of ADAS. Decision of layer of ADAS, if you see any ADAS vehicle, you see any car, you will see that there will be whatever you are able to see, it will be reflecting in the screen. If there are trees, there are people, there are pedestrian walking, it will be shown in your vehicle, and this is how entire system will work. And if you talk about actuation, if as per the level of the ADAS, the actuation will either give you alert or it will control the vehicle. This is a typical example of a truck. If it has an ADAS, how it will look. Now, if you see what will be inside a truck, here you will see that in the window also, if there is somebody who is not able to, you are not able to see in the window shield. Lot of times we drive and some vehicle is going, but we are not able to see in the window shield. But there will be a pop-up alert, a red light, which will show that there is somebody vehicle in lane. You don't change the lane. This is how it will impact. Even if driver doesn't listen, his wheel or steering or his seats can vibrate to show him that he is going wrong, he is taking a wrong decision. If you see that on the screen also there can be hood. Hood will show you that somebody is walking or what is the speed of a vehicle in front of you. If accordingly you can control your own vehicle. And this is by animation we will try to see how this will function. This is a forward collision. Then there is if pedestrian is walking, the vehicle can automatically stop if you are not able to stop it. This is adaptive cruise control. If the opponent vehicle is braking, your vehicle speed should reduce. On the turn, your headlights can turn for visibility. This is an intersection related collision avoidance. This is a blind spot which we talk. This is lane departure. If you want to change the lane, it will pop up you or it can control your vehicle. And there are a lot of other features. These are only few very important features shown with the animation. So basically, if you talk about there are 30-35 features at present in market. So if you try to divide it, there can be 4 divisions. One is collision avoidance, forward collision, side collision, pedestrian collision, rear collision. These are a very major thing where you can avoid the collision, and not just the collision. Also, if a truck wants to drive in the lane, and if driver is not able to judge and he wants to change the lane, or if it is going off the lane, it will show the alert. If it doesn't, it can control its vehicle if it is a level 1 or 1. And there is a driver monitoring and awareness related things. Like if your driver is talking on phone, it can show the alert. In fact, in our vehicles, what we had tested that if driver is talking, it will give an alert along with 30 seconds of video to the control room that driver is talking on the phone, and it will show to pop up. There is a talk box in the vehicle which will pop up you that you don't need to talk on phone. So this kind of systems are already present in India. Some of companies are voluntarily doing it, but these vehicles, if ADAS comes, this will be in every vehicle. So and there can be signboards where multiple times that suppose you don't need to drive more than 50 kilometers. If you drive, the tanker or truck will show and pop-up alert to drivers as well as stakeholders. And another is the speed and convenience, like adaptive cruise control, what we saw. So this kind of 4 major things are there. Okay, so this is our study of vehicles we have. If you talk about 40 accidents which we saw, in this one of major 85% we have seen that it is driver's error coming out, of which 60% is a judgment error. So obviously ADAS is attacking that thing only, arresting that thing only. You see this example of a butadiene truck which it got collided and it was in fire, and driver was half burnt. By 3 o'clock in night we saved him, but through passive systems, not active. And this was because of just a small pit. The vehicle wanted to save its ceramic tiles and it collided with our tanker. And this is how traffic jam happened. So we mapped that ADAS will help us in 70 to 75% of cases. Okay, so we went to around 300 truck drivers we had surveyed, and we come to know that 70% of drivers don't rest even for 5 hours in a day, and they are driving 400 kilometers per day. So we are at a risk, as well as a blind spot and all this kind of whatever we gave the awareness. These are the features. Will you like to have it? And they told, yes, we are facing this kind of accidents, and these are the major reasons. If this kind of technology is given, it will be helpful to us. So we also went to telematics, where we remotely monitored for 1 month around 135 fleets, how they are performing, whose driver is violating. And we came to know that these are passive systems. We can control only if we know that driver's behavior. Else we can only control about the accident after it has happened. So ADAS actually will answer to these questions. If you talk about already there in global benchmark, BSF and Katoin and NETI, they have already implemented a dedicated kind of trucks which are working autonomously. And China has also robotaxis. So recommendation is that a policymaker should think about this. Already India is in policy where we are going to have level 0 ADAS compulsory. The policy is in draft. And we want that OEMs should have this kind of facilities in their vehicles. So this is how, if you want to reduce the accidents, we should always think about ADAS in commercial fleets. Thank you.
This is why this track is future of mobility. We have heard about e-highways, we heard about charging infrastructure, we heard about advanced driving assistance system from level 0 to level 3, and now we are going to talk about heavy duty electrification. The next speaker, Dr. Shivani Sarma, Principal Technical Consultant, Hitachi Energy India Limited, is going to talk about strategic grid planning for heavy duty vehicle electrification, and being National Program Director of National Highway EV, this conversation is going to bring a lot of eye-opening, because the load that mobility is going to demand from energy in coming time require a very extensive, very micro-managed planning, so that we do not end up having delayed overlaps. So welcome Dr. Shivani, and please join me to welcome her on the dais to speak about it. Come here.
A very, very good afternoon to all. Apology for being late. I was just, lost in the maze for an hour around hall 1 and 2. And thank you so much, Abhijeet sir, for setting that stage. I know I stand between you and the lunch and one of the last sessions. Maybe we try to make the session very interesting. Some key points which I want to put across to you, mainly related to the grid planning side of it. So how do we go about doing the strategic grid planning, especially for the heavy duty vehicle electrification? And when we say this, all the electric vehicles that you see on the road, one is the passenger vehicles that we use, right? So they are the light duty ones. You put it at their houses, you charge it overnight, and we are done, just like some AC load. The second part of it is the medium heavy duty electrification, where essentially the large vehicles like your buses, like your trucks, something on the highways, something which maybe Amazon uses for its logistics and so on. So these vehicles, why they are important, what's going around them, and how we need to be prepared as a grid to handle these will be the agenda of our discussion today. And moving to the next slide, I think that's also what our senior experts with Abhijeet ji, I very briefly discussed, the defining moment. So when we say that the load is increasing, okay, the population increases, you see the standard of living is increasing, and there are loads which are increasing all around. What is so special about these electric and especially the medium heavy duty vehicles? It is a convergence of grid and commerce. When we say this, these vehicles, they require a lot of market acceleration on one part. So if you see the charging capacity that we are looking for is very huge. So when I said that there's an overnight charging that you do at your houses, these trucks and buses are going, may not wait for those many hours, right, on the highways. They will be getting charged in few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, and so on. That means they are looking for a fast charging, for an ultra fast charging kind of solution. And when we say this, the kind of power requirement very high in a very short period. That means that we are creating sort of epicenters of loads. And let me tell you, if tomorrow there's an Ola or Uber which says that, okay, let's come up with an EV fleet, which is medium heavy duty vehicle, it is equivalent to a kind of energy epicenter in case, similar to an industrial load, if we have to imagine it that way. So it is equivalent to those kind of emerging industrial loads, also clustered. So if you see with EV, like a petrol pump is simple, right? We'll go, there are hazardous area classifications, you get it filled and you come out. In case of electric vehicles, what time of the day do you land up at the EV charging infrastructure to get your vehicle charged is important. What kind of charging? Is it a slow or an ultra fast charging that you are requiring? And also the number of vehicles. So how many users do you expect at your charging infrastructure station at one time, that also which time of the day? And it is not only on the load perspective. All of us have heard about the green transition, the net zero journey that India is into. And we say renewables, God's gift, let us implement them. Solar, wind, green hydrogen, you name it, and we are very optimistic about these technologies to be integrated. And nothing wrong with that. But when you look at the supply-demand chaos, one side we say there's this medium heavy-duty electrification, which is difficult to forecast in terms of the electrical time of day, the stochastic, what's your peak load, what's the cost at that time, and so on. And secondly, in the energy mix, you are having solar, wind, renewables, which do have the inherent characteristic of being intermittent in nature. So if you see when, if you would like to simulate this scenario, you will have thousands of penetration where the EV load could be different. At the same time, your renewable generation can be different. So when we say loads, I think for those of us 10 years, 20 years back, it was a summer load, winter load, peak load, and so on, which we used to see. Now it is changing. Now you see new kind of loads all around you. And that's where the kind of coordination and planning that is required, very, very critical. So in fact, if you look at the conventional power value chain, we hear of the transmission, distribution, and the generation power value chain, right? Today we stand at a place where there are multi-directional power flows at almost all places. Transmission is very well planned. I think as a transmission planning engineer, if I need a green corridor today, I might have started planning it 10 years back. So that's the kind of future planning, proactive critical planning that we do. But in case of distribution utilities, we have to explore this kind of planning, the coordination mismatch which might happen, which as on date today we might feel that okay, this is something which is manageable. You have say 10, 20, 100 vehicles across the road. But then there might be utilities planning say 500 trucks, 500 buses. And when that load comes, is the system adequate enough to handle that kind of load, and at what time of the day is very, very important. And that's where the planning of the utility as well as the fleet becomes very important, because this is not an exercise where you'll say, okay, like a refinery, tell me what's your roll mill motor, what's the compressor load, and we'll plan for it. The load forecasting, very important. The fleet, which is responsible for this kind of vehicles, needs to have a very good kind of forecast, and based on that, the grid side, the distribution utility side of it needs to go ahead with their planning aspect of it. If we move to the patterns and the regional planning strategies, across the globe there are different kind of categories I would say they can be put into. So some of them would be urban depot charging, where you have a low demand, you're pretty sure of the kind of day or time of charging that may happen. You have large-scale logistic hubs as well as highway corridor charging. So as these archetypes increase, the kind of capacities that we are looking at is going to increase a lot. In some cases, you might say that, all right, let me just pull out a MV feeder and it should do. But in certain cases, you might need a substation, a dedicated one, to have that much of power. And that's where the kind of grid hosting capacity becomes very, very important when we talk of these kind of categories of vehicles. Coming to the next part, where we would like to see that when you say the load profile, what are those characteristics that I'm looking for specifically for a medium heavy duty vehicle? So even within these types, the kind of operational pattern that you see, and to give you a very example in very simple words, if there's a school bus, it has fixed number of trips, right? It will go in the morning and in the afternoon, fixed routes, fixed timings, and so on. But if it's a Amazon truck supplying, like large truck supplying logistics somewhere, it might have number of trips. Maybe in night time they won't operate, so that means they are there at the charging station, and there's an overnight charging that can happen. In certain cases, the vehicles are running all through the time and so on. So there is also going to be a parallel mix of charging patterns. We cannot always say that let's get the vehicle 100% charged and then the next vehicle and so on. When there is a group of such vehicles, there can also be management systems which would take into account the way it is done for traction or metros or trains. What is the number of buses you expect? What is the number of trips? What is the approximate distance that you see? What is the resting time which can be utilized to optimize your charging? So I might not, charge it when the electricity cost is at its peak. But in case, it's an afternoon, there is solar available, there's extra power available, I might like to use that cheaper power and so on. And then coming to the next and the main aspect of it, where we say the infrastructure enhancement framework. So if you see that, maybe today it's quite manageable, but if you talk of 2030, 2035, 2040, as the quantum of these medium heavy duty vehicles is increasing, the kind of hosting capacities that our grid would require to handle this kind of power is going to be huge. It needs adequate planning, and that's where the different stages. So if you see the substation capacity expansion is one, you would see the distribution network reinforcement, in certain cases the transmission corridor development, and then the smart grid integration. More so because you might also see that even within India, we have such a good demography and mix of the kind of usage patterns, right? So somebody in Delhi might be very conveniently using a metro, or somebody in Mumbai might use local trains a lot. Somebody in Nagpur will be very comfortable riding his two-wheeler and so on, right? So even within the same country, the kind of usage patterns are different. The kind of renewable capacity that the different states have. Karnataka, Gujarat, many, Tamil Nadu may have higher solar, Rajasthan, higher renewable compared to few other states which are not RE rich. So you see this good spread of renewables. You also see this good spread of the consumer behavior around you and so on. So very important that you do plan these things. And when we say this, we also don't say that, all right, there are EVs coming up, let's just, put up new systems and so on. First of all, we would like to see what's the existing capacity that's available with your substation, and then see that whether there's an augmentation which can happen with the same substation. Is there something which you could add and make it feasible? Or there is, in case, augmentation in terms where you see that there's a kind of corridor, there's a highway point, there is some kind of cluster coming around, which makes it very interesting. And then coming to the load characteristic aspect of it, this again is very interesting. So I think all of us have made Copilot and ChatGPT our life gurus. We type in for anything and everything, right? We ask it for help like our secretary. It leads to the load of data centers. So when I say data centers, and especially the agentic AI data centers which we are used to using, even that's a very typical load. So it will have a very high power requirement, yes, but at the same time, the kind of redundancy it requires is very high. So it won't say, all right, I'm good with one power source. No. One power source, main power 1, main power 2, it needs a backup 3 and a backup 4. In no case you can afford a data center to get disrupted, and that's where it's very, very important. How do you handle these kind of new players in the load segment into your grid? So be it a data center, be it a medium heavy duty electrification load, and when you talk of electrification, this load is still quite manageable, I would say. You can forecast it, you can maybe do some peak shifting, shaving and so on. But in case of data centers, they are high loads and we can't stop, the web servers to operate. So that again is a very interesting perspective on this. And the implementation roadmap, so I think 2026 to 2030 is going to define that as an early mover, what is that advantage that you have in order for this electrification to be posted, and then how well prepared we are to handle this kind of load. Specifically talking on the solutions from two sides. One is, of course, for the transport sector, the fleet sector, which would like to see that, all right, what's my forecast, how well prepared I should be, how do I take my connection and so on. And second side is the distribution utility, who would like to be well planned in order to supply to that power. Coming to again the grid interconnection assessment, so you would see like what is the kind of substation capacity, the loads, the forecast, or that margin which you would like to add into your network, which makes it a very, very interesting game where you would like to see that, yes, this is my substation, this is the load that I'm looking at, and how does a typical electrification report look like with different phases. The grid transformation, how do we go about it, the different stages. Again, depending on the distance of your charging station from the city center and substation and so on, lot of other interesting aspects. And this, I think, is the most important crux, I would say, that when I say that, all right, I need grid planning and so on, are there solutions available in the grid which are meeting this requirement? So are there modular substations, are there prefabricated solutions which can help you get these done? So very important to have these kind of solutions which are very quick to implement, which can be moved depending on your requirement and so on. So this again is a very, very interesting aspect to it. I come to the last part, which is the key takeaways. This is a very, critical time where the planning coordination mismatch has to be minimal, and very important how do we plan it properly. And I think that brings it to the end of the session. I'm already getting some signals around. So thank you so much.
And really important one, what Dr. Shivani Sharma could conclude. And this demand also, I'm keeping saving couple of points from each speaker, what they have spoken, to conclude at the end of the conversation. But let's go for the last presentation of this session on future of mobility, converging electric mobility, energy infrastructure, data system, and system architecture for India's smart mobility future. The title itself speaks about a combination of three pillars which are required for decarbonization of surface transport. And to present this, I welcome Himanshu Sharma, Senior Manager, Amara Raja, Advanced Cell Technologies Private Limited. A big round of applause for Mr. Himanshu Sharma.
Thank you, Abhijeet ji. First of all, thanks to the speakers before me. They have made my task much easier by contributing to it. So today, I would be sharing my view on what is the future of India when it comes to the interaction of mobility and energy. So the convergence of e-mobility energy in India at the system level. What we face today. So, in India, what we are seeing today is a rapid acceleration in parallel in both e-mobility as well as energy. As per some studies, Indian EV energy demand would stand at 25 terawatt hour by 2030 and roughly around 60 to 65 terawatt hour by 2035, contributing almost 6.5 to 7% of the national demand. Along with that, when we see, we are constantly having a rise in the electric vehicle penetration across the segments with the average CGR going around 30%, which almost in the 6 months in the ongoing financial year, we have already crossed more than 70% of the sales that we did the previous year. There is a lot of stress that is going to be on the energy from the mobility side. When we talk about the system, what we see today are very strong systems but fragmented. Systems including energy, grid, storage, EV charging, vehicle. At all these levels, all the 5 layers, we have very strong systems. We have strong policies. Technically, we are very advanced, but they are all siloed. They don't interact between each other. REE is not linked to electric vehicle demands. Energy storage are deployed in pockets. They are not integrated either with the grid properly or the electric vehicle demands, charging demands. EV behave as passive load right now, which also previously one of the speakers highlighted. EV data is granular. Within EV, we have EV and EV ESS, where again the granularity increases, where the data is then further granulated between the electric vehicle OEMs and the battery OEMs. So what we see today is that we have technically capable systems, technically capable layers, but those technically capable layers are not interacting within each other. What we what I am proposing, where I see India's future going towards is the unified energy mobility data architecture, where I see it as a 5-layer system: energy generation, distribution, storage, BESS, electric vehicles, and data and intelligence layer. Also, I see electric vehicles shifting from being a passive load to becoming a dynamic, vital grid nodes, and data becoming an orchestrator of all the layers intelligently, shifting from independent and siloed systems to unified interoperable architecture. As Dr. Shivani just mentioned, the importance of grid interaction, and previously Mr. Ankur, Mr. Sandeep, and Mithun have also shared about the V2G, ADAS, and the charging infrastructure. If you see, we have renewable generation at one of the highest levels and also the quickest level. We have recently added 25 gigawatt hour of renewable energy in November 2025, which is one of the highest in the globally. Grid infrastructure is increasing rapidly, so is the vehicle adoption is increasing. The center line or the base, the nervous system that we propose, that we envision, is the energy distribution storage at the core of all this, which unifies vehicle, stationary energy storage, renewable generation, grid storage, and the unified data layer, which help us have a more efficient data, not just generation and distribution, but also utilization. Here comes the role of AI. So AI helps us in forecasting charging demands and grid loads, also helps us in predictive maintenance service from the vehicle side through vehicle health predictions, data analytics, smart charging, plus vehicle to grid stabilizing renewables, shifting from reactive operations to predictive operations. When we are using AI or the data more accurately, when we are using data, we get the access, we get the capability to not just control and monitor, but also optimize all these individual layers while accounting for the dependencies which they have between each other. Here I would like to give you a picture before moving forward to the next slide. When we talk about India as a country, India as an economy, the energy, mobility around India, let's envision, let's not just try to picture a country which is the highest population, 1.47 billion people, 7th largest country with 3.28 million square kilometers, 36% of the population living in urbans, and urbanization expected to be around 40% by 2030. And urbanization just doesn't mean that more people are shifting to the cities. It also means that there are more number of cities they are coming into the picture. As the more number of cities come into the picture, more people shift to these new cities, the load will increase. And add to that the golden layer of the average age of Indians, 29 years, less than 29 years. The new young generation, new people coming up, higher per capita incomes, give them access to adaptability of new technology. The access to new features, new functions, new systems helps them use individual items more efficiently. With this, when we see the transition of EV will average out next 6 to 8 years at around 40%. With some segments, especially two-wheelers and three-wheelers, going as close as 80 to 100% of electrification. Commercial vehicle closing on to 70 to 80% of electrifications. Electric vehicle charging systems have themselves seen a CAGR of approximately 25% consistently. And as per the recent economic survey 25-26, we expect a more than 60% CAGR for the EV charging in next 6 years. While all this is happening, sometimes when we sit as what I mentioned earlier, the siloed systems, we feel either ignorant or ignored. Here I would like to bring the focus on the policy matrix, policy and technology matrix. When we talk about the energy and grid, in India, we have Electricity Act, we have smart grid policy, we have renewable energy policies. When we talk about specifically thinking about the renewable energy generation, distribution, and the other aspect of it. Industry leaders like NTPC venturing out beyond their namesake, beyond thermal, and they are just one of them. Indian Oil Corporation, some of my friends are here, they are venturing out beyond oil. That is how the industry and the nation is building. And I am very happy and proud to say that we, on very effective level, have policies to address every aspect of it. When we talk about the mobility and the energy storage systems, in the vehicle, to mention just a couple of, we have already a very robust IS 156 and 038 for low voltage and high voltage systems. Further, more improvements are going on, amendments are going on. When we talk about the ecosystem, we have green building codes which address the efficacy of the buildings as well as the unison of the buildings infrastructure with the charging. When we talk about environment, very recently we have seen a very robust guideline from the government about the battery Aadhaar, battery passport, which covers the circularity of the energy storage, focusing from electric vehicles to energy storage, internal and external consumptions. We have a policy, we have guidelines, we have standards around carbon credits, and we also have a very strict and clear, followable rule around battery waste management, which covers recycling and reuse also, not just the life. While we are discussing a lot of policies, a lot of intermittent relationship between different segments, we also have a concern around data. On the data side, we already have data governance policy in India, which is moving towards standardization of the APIs and their interoperability. We have DPDP, which is focused to make sure that the digital data of individuals is protected. When we talk about the e-mobility, we have in process AIS 189 and AIS 190, which ensure the data protection as well as usability of those data. From here, when we move forward, we see, I would just like to quickly go through the journey, what we have seen. I have been into the electric mobility in India for almost 17 years now, working across the segments, two-wheeler, low speed till the high-speed motorcycles, e-rickshaws, L5s, LCVs, buses, trucks, retrofit systems, hybrid systems, even electrified boats. The electrification till 2020, what we saw was an understanding that was going around the country to understand the electric vehicle as a product, as a market, as a utility. Around 2020, we started electrification, proper electrification, where we saw a lot of localization of the product, of the technology, lot of new policies, lot of new governance, lot of new standards. They were all across electric vehicles, charging, and energy storage. From 2024-25, next 2 to 3 years are going to be the year of optimization, where we will be using our past experiences to manage load, to optimize the demand response, optimize charger and fleet energy alignments, and also do a lot of predictable and manageable systems. A lot of emphasis and lot of utilization of AI is coming up in the service side, both as a product service and also as a service industry. Beyond 2027, we see integration of these systems. As I have been repeating, the siloed architecture of our systems across the nation, across the industries, will slowly start merging. And by 2035, we envision, we expect to see a integrated smart city level energy systems and autonomous, and a step much more further towards the net zero target of the nation. Here are a few impacts of the overall system integration, the improvement in the grid reliability, infrastructure, asset and battery life, and sustainability impacts. So I would like to bring you to some things that where the strategic opportunity lies. Being a digital first, when we talk about the digital first infrastructure, it helps in not just creating new opportunities, but it also improvise our existing systems. AI-driven energy optimization helps not just letting us know where to generate electricity, but also helps us to improve the energy utilization. These will also help us in indigenous battery packs, storage, other equipments, solar equipments, and charging infrastructures. And the model that will come out of this all will surely be a one that will be worthy for the world to look at India to export the complete infrastructure itself as something to follow on. At this point, I would like to thank you all for being the patient audience, and I would like to close here. Thank you.
I'll have to be really very quick to summarize in very few minutes. To all of you have given very significant, important points. I have on dais someone from Indian Oil, someone from Total Energy, Indian Oil Corporation Limited, ONGC, Hitachi, Accenture, and Amara Raja. Three of them, there are oil PSUs of India. Three of them, there are foreign MNCs, and one is Indian company. So what they have brought together is, starting from Mr. Jain, is infrastructure, the bitumen, its quality, its 100% resilience to make a road which stays with us for a period of time. It does not deform, it does not give you a path hole. What we got from Mr. Mithun is to V2G. Definitely there isn't a spectrum required to spread energy to different pockets, different batteries, which can be charged from renewable or solar, and then it can give back to the energy. This V2G concept is what India need at this stage of time, so that we can actually decarbonize ourselves without putting a lot of capital into it. And this, what he has proposed, is highly practiced and very much possible. Going ahead, we had Mr. Ankur from Accenture. Ankur has spoken about agility of planning infrastructure, and also the infrastructure that require necessity of being very adaptive towards data. It should not be a one size fit to all. It should bring a lot of people together to work on a very dynamic, a very data driven, and I can say evidence based information which are making policies. Going ahead, we had Mr. Sandeep from ONGC. He spoke about advanced driver assistance system, how ONGC is using an ADAS when it is getting married with VIDAS, Vehicle Data Information Analytics System, is definitely going to do miracles. A significant amount of reduce in road accident in India, and I'm sure it is taking forward, I'm taking it forward to Dr. Shivani. She spoke about heavy duty planning for distribution, their energy, their grid upgradation, their extension, and how they will be able to expand themselves to meet this target of and the demand of mobility. Amara Raja's representative, Mr. Himanshu, managed to give us a glimpse that how it is going to pan out, and I take your compliment with regards that battery Aadhaar system was proposed by me in 2022. Last month, Ministry of Road Transport and Highway has taken it as an official guideline. there are more 12 recommendations to make battery more safer, identical, and the information available to everyone who are using, selling, purchasing, registering are in the pipeline, and look forward to get it done. So this is what we had in this conversation. Now what I'm going to tell you, close your eyes for next 1 minute and try to understand where India is heading. India is going to make 5,000 kilometer electric highways who will have stations after each 100 kilometer. These stations would have a 3.2 megawatt capacity to dispense energy. But these 3.2 megawatt is not coming from thermal grade or oil or energy. They come from solar, wind, and foreign future fuels like hydrogen or something else. This spectrum is likely to decarbonize, completely get itself disconnected from the thermal grid in next 5 years. So this innovation, whatever has came in a period of time under National Highways for Electric Vehicle, has also brought a 1.5 acre land piece, which is with power available for fleet designing, charge point operators to design their fleet mobility around it. And this will not only bring technical competence, it will also bring commercial competence. So 2026 budget, if you will see National Infrastructure Pipeline, it gives you 1.5 lakh crore rupees infrastructure finance from central government to states, that to an interest free for 50 years. So this brings us all together to look at the technical capabilities, financial, commercial end of this decarbonization, and finally offer to the world, to stakeholders like you and stakeholders who are outside this hall listening to us, that fleet operations and charge point operator infrastructure operations are no more bottlenecks in India. We are going to give you a co-working space after each 100 kilometer, which is 5 acre, dispensing 3.5 megawatt with green energy. You can plan your infrastructure, you can plan your fleets, you can plan your energy around it. And this, to an extent, giving 60% penetration into the numbers of vehicle which you have. By 2030, we are likely to have 60.18 million vehicle who are not going to use diesel and petrol. So with this, I bring this session on future mobility to a closer. I thank each one of you for being here, bringing very valuable inputs, suggestions, policy remarks, which I have taken a note, would be able to work on it in next year by India Energy Week. When we again meet, the future of mobility should sound much better. And the last point, what Mr. Himanshu made, that are we in position to export such ecosystem? Yes, when it comes to exporting a best skill with technology, product and services to any country of the world to convert their normal highways, normal routes into e-highways, India is positioning itself best after China, definitely. And what China has developed, what America has developed, our combination of technology, product and services is going to surpass their capabilities, their technical and their commercial, and the kind of geopolitical conflicts we have. India is more trusted partner for all of them. And India Energy Week is the place where we have spoken about it since day one. And this brings us all together to end this conversation here, but to start all actionable points that we will again come back with next year. Thank you. Have a great day.